Hi, my name is Andrew Davison. I'm the Chief Allied Health Officer with New South Wales Health. I'd like to welcome you. Every year, New South Wales Health hosts thousands of allied health students to undertake their clinical placements. Throughout your placement, you will be using the Electronic Medical Record System, or eMR. Allied Health are a large and diverse workforce. There are 23 professions working in New South Wales Health across all clinical areas in inpatient, outpatient and community settings. The eMR is an essential tool for safe and effective patient care. It is where we record our clinical findings, our assessments, our interventions and the care that we provide our patients. It's also really important for communicating that care with other clinicians. New South Wales Health is a leader in patient care systems, and the eMR is used to capture our activity and patient outcomes to help us to continuously improve the care that we provide our patients and our health system. I really hope that you enjoy your clinical placement, and I look forward to seeing you develop your career in New South Wales Health. Thank you.
This video has been designed as a resource for allied health students and will demonstrate some of the key functionalities of the electronic medical record, such as navigating and documenting in the eMR. The electronic medical record, or eMR, is used throughout New South Wales Health and will be essential to your clinical placement as it contains a large range of information, including clinical documentation, vitals observation, medication administration, procedure reports, pathology results, and medical imaging. Cerner Power Chart is the main application used to manage all this clinical information. The eMR may function differently between each local health district. Your supervisor or local eMR trainer will be the best resource for learning more about the eMR that you will be using locally.
Before showing you how to log into eMR, it's very important to make you aware that once you are in the eMR, you have access to sensitive and confidential information.
There is a medico-legal requirement that all users of the system respect the confidentiality of their patients, and that information contained within these notes is not copied, shared or distributed without the express consent of the patient.
Looking at records for patients who you are not treating or involved with is a serious breach of not only the New South Wales Health Code of Conduct, but a breach of that patient's privacy.
Regular audits are carried out and access is tracked, so make sure you're only accessing records you have a valid reason to. And don't spend any time looking up celebrities, your friends or family, or any patient you are not clinically involved with.
This is the icon for the Power Chart application to access the eMR. To log in, you need to enter your 8-digit StaffLink ID followed by your password. Your password is your electronic signature and should never be shared with anybody. Your supervisor or educator will help you set up your access.
Now that we're logged on, we'll be showing you some of the key tasks you may need to perform throughout the eMR. One of the first things to do is set up a patient list for your clinical area. The type of list I'm going to show you now will provide you with access to the patients that are admitted to the ward or clinic you're working in.
Click on the Patient List button, then the spanner icon. Click on the New button, locate your clinical area within the site you're at, check the box next to it, then click Finish. Moving the list into active lists makes it available for you to use. So check with your supervisor about the exact things you'll need to access.
You now have an easy way of accessing the records of patients in your clinical area. Get your supervisor to help you set up your lists accurately the first time.
For those of you undertaking a placement in a community or outpatient setting, a type of list you may often use is called the scheduler. Within scheduler, you can look for a particular diary and then review or book your patients, selecting the date that you need to review via the calendar icon. This is a handy list that shows you all the upcoming patient bookings for the clinical service you are working in. The scheduler can be used very differently from site to site, so check with your supervisor about the exact things you'll need to access. Selecting the Community Client List tab and your location and service by following these steps allows you to access patients on your Community Client List.
Having a clear and comprehensive understanding of your patient's health journey is a crucial ingredient in providing excellent patient care. Being able to efficiently navigate through a patient's medical record and then document your assessment, treatment and ongoing plan is key to not only ensuring that your patient is well cared for, but part of your responsibility as an allied health professional.
Let's look at how to open a patient's record. You can use lists like the one that I've just showed you, but you may sometimes need to search for a patient within the larger database. In much the same way that a 3-point ID check is important when physically seeing your patients, it's just as important when accessing their record in their eMR. Medical record number and date of birth is the recommended way to search and open up the correct record. Once you have found your patient, make sure that you are opening the correct encounter, which relates to the admission you are concerned with. If you accidentally choose the wrong encounter, you might not see up-to-date information, such as the patient's current medications or their vital observations. If you have not selected the correct encounter, you will then be documenting and entering statistics against the incorrect admission. When you open a patient's file, confirm again that you have opened the right record by reviewing the information in the banner bar. You can see the patient's name, MRN and date of birth, as well as allergy information, the encounter you've opened, the patient's current admitted location, and the doctor supervising the patient's care.
I'm now going to show you how to access a patient's vital observations, medication chart, and clinical notes from within eMR. All are important aspects of you being able to provide your patient with the best possible care.
Navigating through the left-hand menu tab gives you access to these different facilities. Let's start by looking at vital observations. Hopefully by now you will have completed your Between the Flags module and are aware of the specific parameters in a patient's vital statistics that make up the Between the Flags safety zone. Clicking on Between the Flags opens the patient's observation chart. You can scroll down to look through all the patient's recorded vital observations. You can also change the time period you wish to review.
This is also the page where you can add any observations you have taken during the course of your assessment and treatment. Your supervisor can explain this in more detail. Adding observations taken during treatment and assessment of patients is an important tool in making sure that the Between the Flags accurately reflects the patient's vital statistics. Again, this is something that your supervisor can discuss with you.
Before we move on, sometimes when accessing the Between the Flags page, you may be presented with alerts and messages, especially if the patient is unwell. If a specific observation is outside the flags and has triggered an alert, a symbol will appear to indicate this.
Please review the Between the Flags training module for more information and consult with your supervisor about how to action or suspend these.
Opening the Results or Flow Sheet tab gives you access to pathology and imaging results. Let's now look at accessing the medication chart. This is done by clicking on the MAR Summary tab. This is where you will find a list of the patient's prescribed medications. You can also see which medications have been given, which are due, and which ones have been cancelled or suspended. Within this page, you'll find both the patient's scheduled medication in blue at the top of the page and their PRN or as required medications in green at the bottom of the page. If medication has been given, the box will become white and have a timestamp next to it, telling you when it has been signed off. If a dose has not yet been given, it will remain blue and display the time that it is due. You can hover your cursor over a medication to see more information. For some PRN medications, doctors can prescribe a dose range, which will appear when you hover your cursor over the name of the medication. You might also see for some medications the time window that has been prescribed within which the patient can have a subsequent dose.
Now that we've looked at how to find your patient and how to look at observations and medication, let's look at how to access clinical notes. Reading through a patient's file can be daunting when there's a large amount of information to look at. Your job will be a lot easier if you can access notes efficiently and gain a comprehensive understanding of the patient's history. So let's go through a few different methods now. Before we go on, remember that while eMR contains a large trove of information about your patients, it's also important to consider if you need to obtain information from other sources, such as from patient's family or from archived paper records.
When you first come to read your patient's file, opening the Documentation tab gives you access to all their electronic clinical notes. When you scroll through, at a glance, you see the author of each note, as well as the date and time it was entered. The previous and next arrows at the bottom of the page will take you forward and back through the notes. Make sure to keep an eye on the date the note was written so you know that you're reading notes from the right admission. Single click on the title of a note to open and read it. Notes like this one, which are completed and signed off, will be marked as finalised. Sometimes you might also come across notes marked as preliminary. This means that the information in here is not signed off yet and may not be completely accurate. Sometimes you'll also see notes like this one which are marked in error. While you can still read these notes, be careful as the author has indicated that the note is incorrect. Now, while you can scroll and click through different notes, you can also refine what type of note you are looking at by applying filters. An example of a useful filter is the physician-only filter. With this filter, you'll now only see notes authored by doctors in the documentation list. Some sites also have an allied health filter in documentation, which is handy if you want to review any past allied health notes that have been recorded for this patient.
Take care to remove the filter and revert to all once you've finished your search. Otherwise, you might not realise you're looking at a filtered list next time you open the Documentation tab.
Another way to access notes is through the Continuous Doc tab. Continuous Doc allows us to read through notes in a way that is reminiscent of an old paper note system. Scrolling through takes you chronologically back through the last few days of the patient's admission. As with the Documentation tab, you can apply filters here as well to narrow down what you're looking at. Some of the criteria you can filter includes time frame, note type, or encounter type. Another useful feature here is the ability to search through the patient's notes by keyword. You could search for keyword to quickly find notes that include these terms.
So far, we've talked about accessing and viewing information. Let's now turn our attention to the task of documenting in a patient's record. Once you've seen your patient, you need to document what you've seen and done. Make sure you follow your supervisor's direction with regard to the content, formatting, and the timing of when to submit your notes. Let me teach you how the process works. To write a note in eMR, you need to create a document. We'll go through the simple steps on how to do this, and I'll also show you how to submit your documentation once you've finished it for your supervisor to review and sign.
To create a document in which to write your note, you will need to click on the blue plus sign located on the Document Launcher tab of the patient summary or next to the Document tab on the menu on the left-hand side of the screen. Once you are in the document, select the type of note you want to create, likely to be Progress Note Allied Health. In the Catalogue tab, you will need to select Inpatient Outpatient, and then you will be prompted to select the correct note type again. There are small variants between local health districts with this setup, so if you're unsure, check with your supervisor. Once you have finished your note, click the Sign and Submit button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. This will then prompt you to request endorsement from your clinical educator or supervisor. Search for their name in the Endorser field and then select Sign from the drop-down menu under Type. At this point, you should be prompted to enter your password to finish the process of submitting your note. So we've gone through a few of the most important things you'll need to do within the eMR. It's really important that once you finish everything that you're working on, you log out securely by clicking on the exit button. Always exit through the door to make sure that another person doesn't accidentally access records or document under your credentials.
Thank you for watching this introductory video to the eMR. If you have any questions or items you want to clarify, make sure you consult with your supervisor and your local eMR trainers for more training and information. Using the eMR efficiently will be vital to doing well on your placement and looking after your patients. Thank you again for watching, and all the best with your upcoming clinical placement.